Hello, and welcome. I'm Torres-Spelliscy, and this is 5 Minutes with the Professor. In this week's readings, we discussed various types of government regulation, of the environment, and of competition. For this week's short podcast, I'm going to discuss one aspect of competition law, also known as antitrust law, and that's the government regulation of mergers. You see, at their core, antitrust laws are designed to ensure and protect a competitive marketplace. The U.S. historical experience demonstrated that unregulated marketplaces ultimately lead to monopolies, which create market inefficiencies. Indeed, the era known for its robber barons that preceded the federal government's regulation of the U.S. market was rife with corruption and fraud. This led the U.S. government to become involved in order to protect the capitalist economic system. And the government therefore adopted what are known as the antitrust laws, primarily the 1890 Sherman Act, which, as amended, is still the governing regulation today concerning competition in the United States. Now, importantly, every administration enforces these laws somewhat differently. Sometimes it's done with great vigor, and other times not so much. So as a business person, you really have to understand what is going on in the enforcement arena to truly understand risk. In the readings, we discussed the various aspects of antitrust law, but all throughout, remember that the guiding principle behind the regulation is to increase competition, to increase competitiveness. In essence, antitrust laws represent government-guaranteed competition. Now, the Sherman Act was designed to prevent firms from taking over entire industries, including their supply chains. It was the company of John D. Rockefeller, Standard Oil, that led to the wave of trusts in the 1880s, which were intended and usually did take over huge swaths of the market. The result was that power over the economy was concentrated in the hands of a few very powerful men and corporations. The Sherman Act was designed to end that, and it was again expanded in 1914 with the adoption of the Clayton Act, which extended the rules on monopolization to mergers. And this is where we're going to focus our attention today. You see, one of the most common ways in the modern marketplace for a monopoly to occur is through a merger. Now, a merger is when two companies combine to form a new company. And this can be done for a number of reasons. You may want to extend your market share. You may want to consolidate production. There are others as well. For example, the largest beer maker in the world, Anheuser-Busch InBev, is the result of the merger of multiple international beverage companies. And I've detailed the company's history in this chart here. The new company will control about a third of the market, but it wasn't easy to get approval. Indeed, in order to get approval for the deal, Anheuser-Busch InBev had to make deals with regulators in many countries where they were forced to sell off popular brands in order to avoid consolidation in the market. In the United States, the power to regulate mergers is provided by the FTC and the DOJ under the Clayton Act. They have joint jurisdiction. Section 7 of the Clayton Act provides that it is illegal for a person or entity to acquire the stocks or assets of another, thereby creating a monopoly or substantially lessening competition in any line of commerce or in any section of the country. So there are essentially two reasons that a merger can be denied: if it decreases competition in the industry, or if it decreases competition in a part of the country. Now, what are those definitions? Well, a line of commerce is the relevant product or service market, which courts have defined using what they call the functional interchangeability test. Can customers use different products and services as substitutes for one another? Now, in determining whether the actions affect a section of the country, courts review the geographical market to determine whether the direct and immediate effects of the merger would lessen competition and what effect it would have on consumers. If the merger is substantially likely to lessen competition or to create a monopoly, the merger is going to be blocked. Indeed, we see some examples of that in the modern era in the last couple of years. In 2013, AT&T attempted to merge with T-Mobile, but that was blocked by the Justice Department.
And we're going to talk about some breaking news happening now about AT&T's takeover bid for T-Mobile. Spencer Ante from the Wall Street Journal is joining us. Huge news in the tech sector, obviously. Tell us the importance of this and really what it means for the two companies.
Well, AT&T is not having a good lunch break today because this morning the Justice Department put out a news release saying they're filing a lawsuit to block their proposed transaction, $39 billion merger of AT&T and T-Mobile, the nation's second and fourth largest wireless carriers. The deal has actually been roundly criticized by not only consumers but antitrust experts for, what looks like an anti-competitive combination of these two very large companies. It's a vertical integration. It would represent a significant consolidation in the industry. In this lawsuit, I printed out the lawsuit just before I came up here. The Justice Department said in its complaint that if this acquisition goes through, customers of wireless services will likely face higher prices, less product variety and innovation, and poorer quality services due to reduced incentives to invest that would exist absent the merger.
Let's look at what it means for T-Mobile. Where do they get left if the deal does not go through? I know they've been struggling to compete with the larger carriers, so where would this leave them?
Well, T-Mobile was wise in its negotiating tactics in its deal with AT&T. If it didn't go through, they would receive approximately $3 billion breakup fee. They'd also get some spectrum from AT&T. So they've kind of covered themselves in case this goes awry, which looks like it is going awry today. And so T-Mobile will still be the nation's fourth largest carrier, but they're going to have a lot more money in their pocket if the deal doesn't go through, and they'll also have a lot more spectrum to help them provide services to their consumers.
The result was an extremely messy and costly breakup. AT&T was forced to pay a $4 billion breakup fee to T-Mobile. And in the end, the federal regulators determined that the further growth of telecommunications giants, AT&T or Verizon, they had to be restricted. You see, at the time of the proposed merger, both AT&T and T-Mobile were big players in the telecommunications market, so allowing them to join would substantially lessen competition. On the other hand, mergers with small companies are still seen as potentially good. Indeed, in 2013, T-Mobile began talks to merge with a smaller provider, MetroPC. By May 2013, they had completed the merger with the blessing of government regulators. Now, if you are trying to go through with the merger and the government is protesting, there are some defenses that you can argue on your behalf, even if the merger may be anti-competitive. The first is called the failing company doctrine. It says that if there are no other alternatives for a failing company, no purchasers available, and the assets would simply disappear from the market without the merger can be permitted. The second is called the small company doctrine. And that's when two or more smaller companies merge in order to become more competitive with larger companies. Now, importantly, the Hart-Scott-Rodino Antitrust Improvement Act, the HSR Act, requires that certain larger firms notify the Federal Trade Commission and the U.S. Department of Justice of any proposed merger, and that they provide information about the parties and the proposed transaction before the merger is made. This allows the DOJ and the FTC to assess and weigh the various pluses and minuses before the merger happens. And it's expensive. Notification can cost anywhere from $45,000 to $280,000. It's something you must plan for. So what does this all mean for the average business person? Well, one, you have to be aware that certain behavior is regulated, and you need to build those costs of regulation into your business plan. If you're going through with a merger, you may have to consider selling off certain assets in order to convince a regulator that the merger is not going to be anti-competitive. Additionally, you have to consider the cost of compliance and of getting approval from regulators in multiple jurisdictions, each one where you intend to operate. But provided that you are aware of such costs, price them into your overall budget, mergers can prove a very successful way to increase your market influence. Well, that's it for this week's short podcast. Thanks for tuning in, and once again, I will see you on the discussion board.